What's up? What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Goddess Z here to bring you another podcast episode. And I hope everybody's been taking care of themselves, mind, body, and spirit, because that is what it's all about, making sure that all of those are integrated and all of those are in alignment. Okay. So before we get started, you know how I like to do, get a little bit of business out the way. Make sure if you're not already that you're following me here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube podcasts. Okay. That way you can get notified every time I drop a new episode. And then, of course, I am very easy to find. Be sure to check out the description. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all at Holistic and Spiritual AF. And that is A and D spelled out. Okay. So I hope everybody's been taking care of themselves. It's been a while, it's been a minute, and I've been behind the scenes, doing the things that I said I was going to do, bringing more goods to you guys, finding other ways that you can reach me and that I can be more impactful to you, and offer my services and abilities to the world. And I promised that on the last episode, and I know I have put quite a few episodes out previously where I was just bringing information, but spirit moved through me. My ancestors, they were like, it's time, it's time to put yourself out there as you are. I've gone through a tremendous amount of healing work. I've survived a lot of trauma and pain, and I'm, very well versed on that topic in spirituality and holistic studies. So now it's time, to stop being so much of the student and go ahead and start to bring some of this to the world, because I know a lot of people are really suffering. I can see it, I hear it. People come to me with different things, and people that know me, they know that I've been through a tremendous amount of trauma and pain, and I've actually survived through it. And today I'm able to be grateful for it all because it allowed me to heal. If I hadn't gone through so much so early in my life, I possibly just would have just continued to go on trying to survive and just finding these other different ways to kind of make things, normal. Whereas things were so traumatic and so painful that I got to a place where I simply could not continue to go on like that. And I was pushed into healing. So today, I'm very grateful about that, but I'm also very passionate about it because I know that a lot of people, like I said, are still out there hurting and they're looking for ways that they can start to heal. And not everybody is able to go to therapy. And some people need a way of life or something that becomes a way of life and a regular practice for them in order for them to be able to really start to heal from the inside out. Okay. So, my topic today, I wanted to talk about what's going to be watching out for other entities, and I'm just going to share my story because, as most of you know, this is a personal experience podcast. So, what I'm bringing to the table is my personal experience over the years. And for most people, if you resonate with it, that's what's up. If you don't, you don't. But for me, like I said, I went through a tremendous amount of pain and trauma starting in early childhood, early adulthood. Well on up to about 10 years ago. And it was way before that, but really I started to get into the traditional African spiritualist side of things, where I was really starting to hone down on different aspects and rituals that I could use that were specific to me. But before that, I was on a new age path. And so I did a lot of different things. I did yoga was like one of my first things that I started with. Crystals was one of the first things I started with. Meditation, definitely. That really started to open up portals on a whole nother level. And, I went into a lot of different directions and I was pulled in different types of spiritual practices and different cultures and things like that that all had the same common theme, which was healing, and I was extremely passionate about it. I think I told some of you guys on a previous episode that I had a husband who transitioned from cancer. And prior to that, I wanted to be a part of the Western world medical group. I wanted to be a nurse, and I had wanted to be a nurse since I was a little girl. And looking back on that, I realized that that was still in alignment with my purpose and who I am and what it is that I came here to do. But after my husband's experience with cancer, and I just did not like the quality of life that he had with chemotherapy and radiation, I decided that that was not the path that I wanted to take. However, I wanted to dedicate my life to holistic healing and alternative forms of healing. And so that's what I did, and he transitioned in 2010 and I got started on that journey and I had no idea that that was going to catapult me into a healing journey of my own. And so that's how I really started getting into different types of healing modalities, which are actually practices that you can actually incorporate, or you can go to someone and have them incorporate for you so that you can start to experience healing on your own. Now, this podcast, I typically focus more on with women, and I also focus with women of the African diaspora as well as the Indigenous Americas. And the reason why is because there is a tremendous amount of trauma and pain that has been stored for the last, couple hundred of years inside of the DNA of us. Okay. So I've talked about the DNA activation. I've talked about how our bodies and our DNA is comprised of a database from our ancestors. And so we also experience not only the benefits of spiritual abilities and past lifetimes and skills and things that we were able to do then, but we also experience the trauma that was experienced. So a lot of times we can experience trauma in a way in this lifetime where you don't know why. And a lot of times that's what it is. It's the stored trauma within inside of our DNA. From our ancestors. And so that also has to be healed. Okay. So, in my opinion, life has to be considered, there has to be a constant like spiritual growth and evolution process. Okay, now that makes sense to me because of the DNA that I carry and who I am, coming back, because like I said, as a little girl I wanted to help people and I wanted to be more on the healing side of things, but I hadn't quite gotten the full understanding at that time about what that was going to mean for me. So we went from nurse and then we went to traditional alternative forms of healing, and I got into massage therapy. And from there, I tapped into energy healing. And then I went into other cultures and so forth and so forth. And um, so I got to heal a whole lot of stuff. And I remember, each phase of the journey I felt like I was alone. My peer group really was not on that stuff. My family, they did the best they could. I'm not bashing anybody, but they really didn't have a whole lot of ideas or suggestions when it came to healing. It was more like survival skills, survival tactics. It was like, this is how you do to just get along. Don't think about that. You ain't got time for that kind of stuff. And it just was like, well, what am I supposed to do with all this pain and this hole in my soul? And nobody had time for that. And they were doing the best they could. And the way that they were living was working for them. But for me, it was eating at me. And so I remember I would take like, I would get this hope, renewed hope from like, going to like a retreat or going to a workshop or something. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Like this is gonna be my new life. And then I would get home and I would get back into the real world. And it just felt like something or somebody was trying to block me from that. You know what I'm saying? And I would go and get these readings, and people would be like, oh, it's something within inside of you. You have to look in you, the answers within you. And that's like all well and dandy. But when you're looking for specific, succinct answers as to what do I need to do to stop feeling like this, that doesn't really help. So I continued to go along the process, and I thought back all the way to my childhood, and it seemed like every time I took two steps forward in anything in the right direction, it was like there was always somebody like coming through to just kind of knock me down, to kind of like knock me down. And I got to looking into that as I got further into traditional African spirituality when I learned how to start defending myself. Okay. Because the peace and love and light side of yoga and meditation was awesome and phenomenal. And I still do those types of practices to this day because I'm a firm believer that you need both. Okay. You need the light and the dark. Okay. That's that yin and that yang. That's that divine masculine and divine feminine. There's a balance, then a duality. That's what shadow work is. Out of the dark comes the light. So you can't just be all light, 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 because when I was all light, 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 I was getting my ass kicked like in the spirit realm. Okay. People were able to come and do anything to me, and I was able to I would feel broken and I would feel hurt and I would feel traumatized all over again. And it wasn't until I started to experience some other forms of spirituality that actually incorporated protection, okay? Protection rituals and protection practices that allowed me to protect myself, and protect my energy body, protect my metaphysical self, because that's what all of this is. I'm just a spirit having a human experience at the end of the day. And that's what we all are. So once I started learning that, that really was a game changer for me. And I started to realize that some of these people that would come up and it seemed to like block my plans or hate on me or say bad things about me or go tell other people bad stuff, and or I would be so excited to tell them about the good things in my life and they would be not happy about it, and start hating on me and things like that. I realized that these people were being activated and did not know, and they were being activated by lower level entities. Some people call them demons. Some of them probably were demons, some of them were other things, and they were being activated to throw me off of my course. Now, mind you, these people were probably completely unaware that they were being activated because they don't have any kind of spiritual practice. They don't have any kinds of protection. And as a matter of fact, they don't even believe in a lot of this. And I've said this before on the episode, like whether you believe it or not, it's real and it's going to happen whether you believe in it or not. Okay. There's no way you can stop the laws of the universe and what's been happening way before your ability to have some sort of consciousness to it. And so I started to realize that I'm like, some people are just being activated and they don't even know that they're being activated. So what is it that I could do, And I started to start protection rituals. And so that was one of the number one foundational skills I began to learn as I got into that other side was protection, 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 making sure that my energy body was protected. And especially once I was performing energy work for other people, the last thing I want to do in an effort to try to help somebody to realign and balance their energy field is to be taking on their stuff. People are coming specifically to me or healing, for me to be a facilitator of healing. And I say that because I myself am not the person healing. The way that the energy healing works for me is I actually work with my spirit guides and healing guides, as well as the healing guides and spirit guides of the other person. So I become the vessel, and that's why it was important for me to change things about myself, the way that I ate, type of spiritual practices that I had so that I could kind of keep that vessel clear. And so I'm very clear about the fact that I am not the healer, but I am just the facilitator of healing. And so one of the number one things that I had to learn, and I learned this back in massage therapy, was um, to make sure that I was protecting myself before I started working with somebody else. Not only protecting myself from taking on their stuff, but also protection to make sure that I wasn't putting my crap onto somebody else. So I say all of this because I think a lot of times what's happening and what's really been happening since 2020, the portals have opened up in a major way. Astrologically, a lot of people can see it for those who understand things that way. And most definitely, a lot of people are feeling more spirit in tune, more spirit conscious, more asking the questions of, why is my spirit here? What's my purpose? We're coming back to our spirit selves and connecting with our creator, and finding ways to tap into our divinity versus where we were, say, maybe 10, 15 years ago when we were so material conscious. And there's still a lot of people that are like that. But definitely things are changing in that direction. And that's part of the reason that we're experiencing inflation in the way that we are. Once we had that shutdown during the virus time, um, a lot of people had time at home. They weren't concerned about, oh, got to pay the light bill, got to pay this, I got to put gas in my car, I need to go to the grocery store, I need to get a doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, all of these material 3D things that keep us locked into this reality and less time to think about our spirit self. So people were at home, they were getting rested well, they were eating better, they were spending time with family, they had more time to think about things they hadn't thought about for some people in years, okay? So there started to be this spiritual awakening and consciousness expansion on a grand level. And then next thing you know, we come out of that and the prices start raising like crazy. And now you got people like, grocery store trips are like 50% higher than they were 30 years, 3 years ago. And then you have people who are working two jobs, and now you got people who can't pay rent. You got people who could just completely forget about buying a house now. And just everything has changed drastically when it comes to the increase of the focus on the material world. However, people had that opening, as well as what was happening in the planets where they're like, you know what, this isn't working for me. This whole lifestyle about trying to, work to pay for electricity and work to pay for water, and what else are you going to charge us for? It's not working for people. So some people have also awakened in their consciousness to their spirit self, to the point where they are experiencing their abilities. They are activating things in their DNA. Their ancestors are closer and working with them and kind of preparing them for what's happening on a metaphysical level, like what we can't see. And so it may seem like now they're experiencing some of the stuff that I was experiencing earlier. And for me and my peer group, I was like way ahead of my time. I'm an OG millennial, so not many of my peers were on this. Like my younger millennial brothers and sisters, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm closer to Gen X, and Gen X and them, they just wasn't feeling this. Okay, it was all about going to college and getting a good job and getting a good house and making sure that you're in a certain class and that's going to be it for you. And they in their minds they were doing the right thing. Us as millennials, we came kicking in the door like that. That busted system isn't going to work for us. You know what I'm saying? They ain't got no retirement set up for us. We had the housing crisis. We couldn't buy a house. So we started becoming entrepreneurs. We were the creators of you can't pay me enough. You're not paying enough for that. And so we started creating changes and different types of ways of accessing the world, as well as other streams of income, being able to take your financial success and put it in your own hands. And all that going on, I was in here going to all these different healing stuff and stuff. So I was way ahead of my time. So these people that are just now waking up, and they're seeking and they're searching for information just like I was. And now it's way more readily available than it was when I was out there. You had to be a true seeker to find that stuff, okay? You had to be like completely activated by spirit and just being led through the synapses of the spiritual network in order to find the right classes, the right people. But once you were in, you were in. Now it's everywhere, okay? You got a plethora of choices. You've got Instagram, you've got TikTok is really laying it out there. You've got podcasts now where people can really start to feed that part of themselves. But some of them may be experiencing what I described earlier, which is it seems like you take two steps forward, you're feeling hopeful, and then you get knocked down by something or somebody. I need you to understand, if you're new to this and all of this information has just started to activate inside of you, and you're jumping and you're trying this and you're trying that, and you're going to get this oil and you're doing this hoodoo thing and you're doing this, E5 thing, or you're doing this voodoo thing, or you're doing whatever it is that you're out there grabbing a hold to, especially off of social media. The number one thing that you need to understand, and first and foremost go to before you go to anything else, is protection rituals. Okay. I'm a firm believer in connecting with your own ancestors and spirit guides, because they're going to protect you. Okay. They're going to be able to help you be more protected versus you just going out there. You just woke up yesterday on this stuff and now you want to go out here and start dealing with the spirit world. And all of a sudden you're playing with the low entities, or as some people call it, demons. It's real, whether you want to believe it or not. You know what I'm saying? And some of these people that you're encountering, whether you know them or not, because I went through that when I was living in Atlanta. I had more people in that city who did not know me that wanted to try to bash and beat me down emotionally, mentally, and spiritually in so many different ways. I had no choice but to be like, who the hell sent you? Like, I don't even know you. Like, how in the hell can you hate on me so hard and with so much passion and conviction? And I had to realize who I'm dealing with. I'm not dealing with that person at that time. I'm dealing with that person who's experienced a possession by a lower level entity, because that's what happens when your 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 body is just like an empty vessel and you're not connected to any sort of consciousness or spirit. Then all of a sudden you become a host for walk-ins whenever it's convenient. And so that's what you may be experiencing. And some of these people may be your family. You know what I'm saying? And because they're closest to you. So you're trying to tell them and they're hell bent, you're trying to wake them up and they're hell bent on their old ideas and the paradigm that they've been living in. Because remember, the survival thing has been working for them. Okay. So now you coming over here trying to disrupt that. And then, they get activated and they come and lashing and attacking at you. You got to realize that protection and connection with your own ancestors and spirit guide is going to be vital before you start to go into anything, because they're going to guide you. Okay. You will have the protection so that even when you're not thinking about being protected, you protected. You know what I'm saying? You will have your own intuition kicking into full gear. You will have your own oracle about don't go over there or don't leave just yet. Don't go now. And I can't tell you how many times where it seemed like I was headed out the door to go do something and I can't find my keys for like 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm like, why in the hell? I had everything. I was about to be on time. Like, what happened? Boom, I can't find my keys. And I get my keys and I go head off somewhere and I just missed a wreck, or I just missed some terrible thing that happened before I got there. Those types of things will protect you in all areas of your life. And it's very helpful because now you're conscious to that. And so also you will be guided once again by your spirit guides and ancestors, and they'll say, hey, check this out, this is good, and it's going to take you directly to where you need to go to. You may have to pull back from some of these people. You may have to have completely different conversations with them. Some of these people may not be happy about who you are becoming, but you have to realize you are activating to who you always were. We've gotten so far removed from that because we're so conscious and worried about what's happening out there and in the world and whatnot, that we have forgotten who the hell we are. Some of us don't even know who we are. Okay. So this is going to be a getting to know yourself type of session. And in the process, you're going to need some protection. Don't just jump out there and go buy the first thing you see on Amazon because, or excuse me, Instagram, because somebody says they gotta make him love you oil. Like what is that even? Like, not to mention your ancestors and spirit guides can teach you how to make that stuff if that stuff is something you're supposed to have. Now, most likely they're not going to. You can't force somebody to love you. There's a reason. Everybody's got a journey. You could try to force that person if you want to. That person may be absolutely wrong for you, and chances are they are if they're not automatically in love with you for the right reasons. And you may be bringing into your world and your universe a whole nother hell that you wish you had. So the key is to tap into protection first. And the next step is healing. Nothing's going to pop off without that. Okay. It's the difference between those little snap pop things at the 4th of July and the difference between the big fireworks. Okay. So you may get some sort of little energy where you got a little snap pop thing going on, but it's nothing going to happen because there's no healing. So protection first, number one. Number two, healing. And then you want to start to go into manifestation and changing things and changing the things around you. By that point, you will be so in tune with your ancestors, your spirit guides. You'll be able to see somebody who's activated by an entity coming a mile away. Okay. And so your best bet is like, oh, this not even be around that person. One of the biggest bonuses I've got of that is my home. My home is like a sanctuary, no matter where I'm living at, because my ancestors live in that home too. And ain't no mess getting up in here. Know that. I don't have a whole lot of people in my house. I never have. And I appreciate that because it keeps my home and my sanctuary like a spiritual breeding ground, where I'm full of messages, I'm full of dreams, where, the ancestor altar is up, the candle is up, and, I'm getting what it is that I need. I know the next thing to do. I have a relationship with my ancestors and my spirit guides. I know the difference between the communication with them and other entities. And that's another thing. If you don't have that type of relationship with your ancestors, you don't know if you're talking to your ancestors or if you're talking to a low level entity. So that is the purpose of this video today. I hope that helps somebody. Guys, protection, protection, protection first. And watch out for those people who are being activated by lower entities because they will start to pop up and pop up in the mini as you get closer and closer to who you are supposed to be. Okay. And that's it, guys. Until the next video. Peace.